Okay, it looks like we're live, I think. Yes, we're live. So, nobody here yet, but these are my psychic conferences, I'm starting to call them, in which I try to do something pretty regularly on Facebook Live. And as soon as people join us, hiya, and we'll do a little talk, and I would like your questions. So if anybody has questions, please always come to these video sessions prepared with a question if you can, and we'll try to set that up as part of the theme for the evening. Now, last night we had quite an interesting ideas about the Akashic record, for example, and we were talking about precognition, which is seeing the future, and retrocognition, which is seeing the past. And we also talked about psychometry and psychic history, and how psychics can access vibrations and tune into this sort of universal mind I was talking about. So hopefully we might pick up on some of those things today, but people are just sort of coming in now, hopefully with a Stonewall theory. I don't know the Stonewall theory. That someone's just asked about Stonewall theory. No, I don't know about the Stonewall theory, Janine, so that one's not for me really. I can't answer that one. Astral projection, actually that's probably a good one. Tilly, well, you came in nice and early. Let's start off on astral projection from what I understand about it. Okay, astral projection. And if you've got any other questions, and as I go along, Tilly, I'm looking down this way because that's where I can see the comments coming in. But if you've got any other questions as I go through this, yeah, please raise them. So astral projection, yeah, that's kind of quite a difficult one, because I think in my opinion, I think there's quite a lot of misconceptions with some of the things about astral projection. But I'll tell you what I think. So again, if we look at this, as you know, I'm influenced by two things really, two main, well, lots of philosophies, but particularly spiritualism, where I've worked for many years as a medium, and also Indian ideas. So again, if I talk about astral projection, I'm probably going to bring those two things together. So in terms of astral projection, in Indian ideas, there's this idea that we have many layers to the human soul. They call them what they call the koshas, right? And they are like the layers of an onion. So one of the koshas is our physical body. Another kosha that surrounds the soul is would be the sort of pranic body, the energy body, the spirit body, right? And that spirit body in turn contains the mental body, our mind, right? And within that, there is also the causal body, which is like our soul state. And within the causal body is the very core of our consciousness, which they call the Atma, which is like the absolute connection with the infinite. Okay, so we're like these layers, right? And at death, we lose the outer layer. So the outer layer being what they actually call the food sheath, which is the physical body. So when we lose this physical body, we enter the spirit body, where we continue our journey of life into death through the spirit body, okay, which contains all those other sheaths that I was talking about. So we kind of have a lot of proof of this, because one of the strongest proofs that there's this spirit body is the reports that people have near-death experiences. So when we get things such as if someone's on the operating theatre and their body physically dies, there's lots of cases out there, and I'm sure you've seen them on the net, of people that have traveled in a duplicate physical body. So that's the first sheath, the first kosha that I was talking about earlier. So when we shed the second kosha, because we shed the first one, which is the physical body, But when the two separate, people often talk about seeing a duplicate physical body. Some people talk about it being connected by like an umbilical cord, which, as my phone clicking as I'm talking, as you're putting things, I've got to turn it off a bit, otherwise it's going to be interfering. Yeah, so it has this, we have this sort of like the spirit body will kind of is being seen. So there's a lot of reports of people that have had this report that they've, for example, they've seen when they've stepped out of their body, they've seen their own body lying on the operating table, but they've been able to report things like being able to give the numbers on a defibrillator, being able to repeat conversations that were given in another room somewhere else, or being able to, in one particular case, see a plimsoll or something, it was a trainer that was on the roof of the building that nobody could have known was there, you know, it was wedged on a ledge somewhere. So they were giving information that they couldn't have known about, certainly would have been completely unconscious under the amount of anesthetic and brain dead at the time. So this has kind of given us a bit of, you know, given us the idea that maybe we can exist outside of the physical body and give some scientific proof. You see, there's a great solicitor online that you probably may have come across his website, Victor Zammit. And he's often said that if you take all these evidences, if you take the evidence that we have of like astral travel experiences, the evidence of near-death experiences, the evidence of mediumship, of meeting people in dreams, and the things like the cross correspondence, and you take all this and you take all that evidence as a whole, you end up with absolute proof of life after death. So, you know, we're talking here, just in case people are joining, we're talking about the astral body and astral travel. So yeah, so when you take all this evidence together, we get maybe, you know, complete, absolute empirical proof that life continues after death. And one of the strongest is this idea of the astral travel, you know, the astral, we can exist in an astral state, particularly when we experience that on an operating table. Now, I said at the beginning that I think there can be a lot of misconceptions about astral travel too, because, you know, you have to think about where are we astral traveling, you know, because on one level, we must travel also through what we call the lokars, right? Now, I'm talking about Indian terms here, but I've talked about the koshas, which are like the layers of the soul. You know, there's the physical body, the mental body, the soul body, and so forth, the causal body. And what is it that is traveling out of the body? So when we first astral travel, and this, I'm talking first of all about the idea of astral traveling on the operating table, the near-death experience type thing. I'm just going to see what other comments are coming up. I've got some listening things. When we do that, we can give some empirical proof. But we also, when we can astral travel in dreams, for example, as well, can't we? I mean, I don't know if any of you here have had out-of-body experiences in dreams, but you know, I've had one where I've seen my body laid on the bed. And that's only the once, really, when I really, really had a very, very powerful out-of-body experience. And I saw myself, I was about 14 years old, I was. And a lot of people at the age of 14 apparently do, that's kind of the age it happens for people, spontaneous astral travel. And for me, that was quite a powerful and at the time quite a scary experience, because I was stood looking at the body laid on the bed, and I walked and turned and actually could move through the wall, and then I floated to the ceiling and I could see myself there, and then I kind of panicked. I thought, oh my God, I might be dead. And I didn't see any any umbilical cord connections, so I definitely didn't see that. But when I suddenly realized what was happening, it was like there was a huge explosion. It's like like a bang, like a gun had gone off in the room, and my body jerked into life again, and I was absolutely drenched in sweat. But for a moment there, I had actually seen myself physically laid on the bed, and it was as real as a waking normal experience, you know. Does it happen just prior to falling to sleep? And for me, I know for a fact that that was not an illusion. It was not a dream. It was not some form of hallucination, because it was absolutely real. So I don't believe. I know that that type of thing exists, can happen, and that indeed we can enter that first state of the next plane, which is where our spirit body releases from the physical. Now, people ask about, you know, a lot is made about the idea of traveling in astral planes, and you get people like Monroe and that spend their whole lives practicing out-of-body experiences and experimenting with it, and people get very deeply immersed in the whole idea. But you have to ask yourself, where are you going when you astral travel? Because my understanding is that when we release from the physical body, we enter another stage after that, because the astral realms are really basically exactly the same as the spirit realms. Again, look into Hindu ideas, Vedic ideas, which I'm very interested in, as you know. The astral planes would be taught as these many layers called the lokas. They don't think of one heavenly plane. When people die, and when a medium like me communicates with people in the afterlife, we're talking to that first level of the astral plane that is very, very similar to this world. Beyond that, there's finer and finer planes of vibration that are more and more closer to the Godhead. So people that have become, how can we say, spiritually evolved, their vibrations going at a higher rate, can climb higher and higher through the heavenly planes. So we're not just talking about one heaven, we're talking about many. And in fact, this world here is one of those heavenly planes. So, you know, when it comes to the astral travel, we're not just traveling around the earth. We're going to travel into other realms. We're going to travel into the heavenly realms. So basically what you are experimenting with is entering the spirit world. But the question I have is, do we actually physically need to leave the physical body in order to do that? Because when I do mediumship, I'm not actually leaving my body to talk to spirit people. It's all happening within my mental plane. And if you think about it, you know, like last night, I was talking a lot about the idea that we're all kind of connected in a universal mind, you know, and I talked, you remember, about the idea that when we connect into like the Akashic record, we can get into the memories of the past, we can get into the images of the future. So that Akashic record as such, that's the memory, but also there's a whole mental existence that exists beyond this physical realm, because the spirit world itself is like a mental state in a way. It's of mind in many respects. The worlds that we create in the spirit world are created by ourselves. You know, the physical reality that's around us now, as you're watching me and I'm looking at the screen here and you're looking at your screen, this physical reality is actually just a picture in our brain. Its only reality is in our consciousness. You know, all our perceptions are telling us it's an outside world, but actually the only reality is in our consciousness. Now, if you took away that physical sheet, you took away the physical plane, and we just had that same consciousness, but we put it in a mental plane, then all sorts of things are possible, because we could perhaps communicate with each other with a shared reality, you know, a temporary shared reality. So for a temporary time, we're talking in front of a screen, just like we knew on Earth, and then we can dissolve that and move into another scene. So that's what I think the afterlife is like. And that's exactly the same as I understand the astral planes to be like, because they're one and the same thing. So when we astral travel, as far as I understand it, we are entering the realm of consciousness. It's like a world of consciousness, uninhibited by the physical plane, uninhibited by the human body. So when we die, we enter those realms. If our spirit body separates from our physical body, we can also enter those realms. And if we also attune ourselves properly, we can enter those realms without leaving our physical body, because our mind is naturally already connected with the kind of the universal mind and the mind of the spirit and the mental energy of everything. I mean, you could call it, I could replace that word mental with spiritual, perhaps. The spiritual state is extensive, right? So, so the question was, you know, to talk about the astral plane and astral travel. So like I say, where are we traveling to? We are traveling within the universal mind. So although the spirit body leaves the physical body for a while, that's, I think, the next stage is just you connect into the mental realm. You're still back with the body in a way. And when we die, we can enter that realm without the encumbrance of the physical body. So what an amazing thing that must be, you know, when we actually get into the spirit world, to be able to live in an existence that is without physical form. You know, it's quite hard for us to imagine it in some respects, isn't it? The closest we ever come to that state in normal life is through dreams, because in a dream we can be anywhere at any time immediately, can't we? There's no, you don't have to travel 100 miles to get from one place to another. You'll find in a dream your location changes just like that. You can be talking to one person in a dream, and then you can be talking to someone else in a completely different setting. And I'm sure that's kind of the way it must work if we were in the spirit worlds. In fact, maybe dreams are a connection to those spirit worlds. Maybe we're just going to our normal spirit world thinking, as it were, and that you can be where you want at any time. And in fact, time, there's another one, because time in dreams is very strange, isn't it? One moment, the other night, I dreamed of somewhere where something I knew when I was 5 years old, you know, and I woke up remembering all the things and all the names. I could remember everything about that period when I was 5, you know, which I'd have struggled with if I'd have sat and tried to sat down and think about it. But it's like in dreams, it doesn't matter. It's as if yesterday and tomorrow and today are all exactly the same. And I'm sure it must be a bit like that in the spirit world, you know. I mean, when we lose people, we think about them waiting for us, perhaps. But maybe time is different. Certainly the spirits often say to us that time is very different there. You know, that it's not like it is here. It's not restricted. It's not like an arrow that flies in a direction. But it's like in a dream where moments when I was 5 years old and dreams about now, as if the unconscious mind seems to pay no attention to time, you know, as if I could have been 5 years old. It could have been all that time ago, you know, nearly I won't tell you a long time ago, you know. So yeah, so that astral world, that astral travel, it's probably not something separate, really, you know. That's what I think. I think a lot of people write about astral travel almost like they're writing a fantasy novel. I mean, my understanding of it is that it's, you know, although I explained that experience I had where I physically saw myself laid on the bed, I think the experience of the astral realms we have happens within ourselves when we get those senses of being in touch with other realities. And it does happen sometimes in very deep meditation. One can enter that state. I find myself that in my own meditations, I work with, like I told you yesterday, I'm a very visually orientated person, and I think a lot of psychic people are very visually orientated. And sometimes in my meditations, I will get a period where I'll enter a state where I'm in a visionary state, really, where I'm seeing incredible things. And it's a bit like some of you might have experienced perhaps when you go to sleep. I don't know if any of you had this experience when you get hypnagogic dreaming, where you'll see incredible images one after another, incredible things like but you can't remember them. It's like they're just vivid and huge, incredible landscapes, and they come and go like a kaleidoscope of amazing images. And it happens in that state just before you're dropping to sleep. You're not quite asleep, you're not quite awake, you're aware, but it's like incredible things are happening. And that can also happen in meditation, I find sometimes, and you can hold that state a bit more in meditation. And I think this is although they call it hypnagogic dreaming, I think it connects up with the idea of the third eye, with the inner eye, because that's a seeing thing. And although that's not the objective by any means of meditation, that is not the goal of meditation, those things, but it is an interesting insight into the astral worlds, the same realms that you asked me about earlier, about the astral travel. So I think we can do it in meditation. And of course, we don't want to get lost in a world of complete fantasy, but there is a absolutely engaging and beautiful realm of great creative thought that we can tap into. I mean, when I was an artist, I was a painter for a long time, I mean, those realms just fascinated me so much. It was as if, you know, if only I could paint this. And there was just so many beautiful images that it was just more than you could possibly imagine in a lifetime, sometimes in a few moments. So it does show that we have, all of us, you know, I'm talking about things here that some of you may not have experienced, but I'm sure a lot of you have also experienced this, you know, these incredible states of consciousness that we can all have access to. Because when you enter those states, it's not like your mind's making it up, you know. It's like it's come ready-made. It's like you're seeing things. It's not coming from your imagination. It's beyond my imagination. You couldn't dream it up if you sat down and tried to work out a piece of this architecture. You see architecture, for example, that would be just astonishing, you know, in those sort of states, or landscapes that are unbelievable and breathtaking. And it would take you forever just to work on one tiny bit of it. It makes the computer games look as if they're nothing, you know. So it seems as if we come, so it gives me the feeling that we're experiencing something that's already there, that's not really coming from me and my unconscious or my dream or my subconscious states. It's coming from something where I'm experiencing something that's, in a way, although I'm experiencing it mentally, it's an objective thing. It's something outside, you know. So yeah, that's some thoughts then about the astral realms, you know. And so I'm going to conclude it there, I think. And but let's just see if any of you have got any comments. Any comments on those thoughts? Do you think I'm right with what I'm saying with it? Have you experienced anything like that yourselves? Type a comment, and I can see it there if you do. And because it always makes it more interesting, I think, if I get your feedback. It's not just me talking all the time, which is kind of the way these things work, doesn't it? Okay, well, I think that's about it for tonight. I don't want to make these hours long. Just an inspiring thought, hopefully, for when you go to sleep tonight. And maybe as you drop off, you can perhaps get to that state of hypnagogic dreaming, because I think that's in some ways even more interesting than the idea of astral travel, because those are, I believe, the astral worlds that we're experiencing there, or maybe they're our unconscious mind. But if you can, when you go to sleep tonight, it passes very quickly, but you might find there's a little spot where you start to see an image or so in your mind's eye. And if you see something, it might just be a pinprick of light or something, and just put your full attention on it and hold your attention on whatever you see. And if you get an image in your mind, just hold your attention and hold it and make it build and build and build, and then see if another one comes, and then let go of that one and look at the next thing that comes into your mind, and build and build and build it, let it go and look for the next one. And then sooner or later it'll start boom, 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 and loads of it will become, and then you just watch it, but hold your attention, but try not to drop to sleep. And that way you'll get into that hypnagogic state. And mark my words, it's a fascinating state to get into, which you've probably experienced before. And if you do experience it for the first time consciously, then it'll feel very familiar to you, although it'll be very strange imagery. You'll see all sorts of things. You'll see beautiful things. You'll see horrible things as well. But it's like you're watching a movie. It's like it doesn't matter if it's terrible or not. It's just pictures, you know, and yet they're engrossing. And I think that's perhaps a vision of astral worlds. I don't know. Perhaps people think differently. There you go. There's some food for thought for you. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, folks. All right. So I hope you liked that. Did you enjoy that, guys? Okay. Well, I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Check out our website for more stuff. You can book psychic readings with us and find out about our public events, or watch our fantastic movie called Mystic Journey to India. It's a mind-boggling adventure that's now showing on Amazon Prime. And if you want to learn more, you can find out about my books and courses. Check out Messages from the Universe that reveals the ancient secrets of existence, or read my book called Psychic School to discover and enhance your own psychic skills. Or how about What to Do When You're Dead, my book about the afterlife and what it's like. All this plus lots more, lots of new articles and videos, all on my fascinating website.